Hello again, my name is Matt and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reading 3 brand new thrillers. I've seen a lot of hype all over Bookstagram and BookTube for these 3 books. I've been really excited to get into them and I now have all 3 of them in my possession. They all just came out recently, so we are going to do them all in a video. The first one I'm going to be reading is The Nothing Man by Catherine Ryan Howard. This one is a book within a book that follows a character, Eve, who was attacked by a serial killer with the nickname The Nothing Man. Several years prior, she's now published a book about her experience and acknowledging the other victims of the serial killer, and we're following the actual man who was the Nothing Man, who obviously never got caught, who finds out that she's released this book, and he starts reading the book about himself. And so things obviously unfold from there as the case gets back in the media. And the second one I'm going to be reading is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. This one I've been really excited about. I've seen so much praise for this. I don't really know much about it, but the back of the book says Rear Window meets Get Out, and those 2 movies are amazing, so I'm already sold with this book. I don't even need to know anymore. And then the last one just came in the mail today, and that is the new Ruth Ware. This is One by One. This is a whodunit that takes place at a ski resort in the French Alps. So again, I'm already sold. I've heard that this has big Agatha Christie vibes, right up my alley. I'm super excited for this one. So I'm going to start with The Nothing Man, and I will update a little later. And I'm almost 200 pages into The Nothing Man. I'm pretty close to finishing it. I'm really enjoying it so far. It's pretty fast paced. As I said earlier, it is like a book within a book. We've got our main character Jim, who is the Nothing Man, who is a serial killer who was notorious about 20 years ago. And one of his victims, Eve, has come forward and has written this book called The Nothing Man about the experience. She was the only member of her 4-person family to survive his attack. He came into their house and he killed her parents and her sister, but she survived because she was in the bathroom when he was there. So she is the only survivor. She decides to go ahead and write this book about her family, and she's been working with a police officer who investigated the cases about the previous murders that he committed. I think her family was like the 5th one and the last one, and obviously like they never found out who the Nothing Man was. Jim has just kind of gone on to his everyday life. He's working as a security guard now, and it's implied that he was actually a member of the police back when this was going on 20 years ago. So we're alternating between Jim, who sees this book on the shelf and decides to get himself a copy and read it because obviously it's about himself. We alternate between him reading the book and the book itself. So we hear from him as he starts getting like increasingly nervous about them reopening this case and finding him and everything like that. And we have that alternated with Eve's actual book, so we get to learn about the victims of the Nothing Man and especially Eve's family and the trauma that it caused her in particular on her life. So this is a really cool concept for a book, first of all. I'm enjoying it a lot. It's definitely something for like true crime fans. It reads just like a true crime nonfiction type of book. So if you like that kind of stuff, if you liked books like The Night Swim, I think you'll enjoy this one. It is the next morning. I'm finished with The Nothing Man and I'm gonna give it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. The only reason that it's not quite a 5-star for me is that I found some of the portions of the book within a book just to be a little tedious to read. I kind of kept wanting to get back to Jim's part of the story and back to the action, but I still did really enjoy it. I thought it was really well written, especially the 3rd act of this book is so well done. It will have you on the edge of your seat. Once I got to like page 200 or so, I did not want to put this book down at all until I got to the end. And there's a really good twist at the end that I did not see coming at all. So I really enjoyed this one, especially once again, if you're a fan of true crime or anything like that, then this is definitely a book for you. This has actually made me more interested now in like going and reading some actual like true crime nonfiction books. Again, I think I'm going to give it 4 stars. And I'm going to do When No One Is Watching next, I think. So I'm about 60 pages into When No One Is Watching, and although nothing thrillery has happened yet, I'm already really into this book. We're following our main character, Sydney. She's lived in this predominantly black neighborhood in Brooklyn, and she's noticing that gentrification is becoming real here, and a lot of her neighbors that she's known forever are moving out rapidly. A lot of her beloved neighbors are moving out quickly and being replaced with other younger white people. And in alternating chapters, we've got our narrator Theo, who is white and who recently did move there, and he is kind of fed up with his ex-girlfriend Kim, who's doing a lot of, you know, wink wink racist type of actions towards the people of color in the neighborhood. Theo is not a fan. They are separated, although they're living in the same house for, you know, financial reasons, but they are separated from each other at the moment. And so Theo meets up with Sydney at a neighborhood meeting, and Sydney expresses the idea that she would really like to start a neighborhood tour and become a tour guide and learn about the history of their neighborhood. And so the two of them kind of decide to jointly research the neighborhood together and its history. And so that's about the point where we're at in the book. We've been introduced to a lot of the neighbors, and it's just kind of been setting up the setting and the neighborhood itself and the residents. And I always enjoy books that are about a wide variety of characters in neighborhoods and things like that. So I'm liking this a lot so far, and I'm interested to see what the thriller aspect of this book is, because it's not there yet, although it's very entertaining. Y'all, this freaking book is so good. I'm only like 100 pages into it and I'm already obsessed. The like mystery stuff has started happening a little bit. It's definitely kind of a psychological thriller is where it seems like it's going to. So I'm going to tell you about something that just happened that is kind of like blowing my mind a little bit. So if you don't want any kind of spoiler at all about this book, I would fast forward through this, because if you're like me, I would rather go into a thriller knowing like the bare minimum about it and then like find out as it unfolds in the book. So if you're one of those people, fast forward through all of this because I might spoil something for you. But anyway, so something like a little spooky has happened. We've got Sydney who has a hair appointment, and it's like a 15-minute walk, so she decides that it would be easier to call an Uber because it's a really hot day. So she orders an Uber, her Uber driver cancels, and it's replaced with a new driver. He picks her up, and she's immediately like on edge when she gets in the car. It's a like buff white man who is talking about how he's familiar with the neighborhood that he picked her up at, and he's asking her how she feels about the gentrification and stuff, and about all the new things that are going on in the neighborhood, and she becomes really uncomfortable. She learns that he is a retired police officer, I believe, and he locks the doors randomly on her, and she's like, you know, why did you lock the doors? And he's like, oh, it's the child safety lock. It automatically locks whenever we've been in the car for so long. And she's like, okay, weird. And so she immediately just like starts getting super paranoid and freaked out. And the driver starts going in a different direction than what she was supposed to be going into her hair appointment. And so she's like, you know, where the fuck are you taking me? He's like, oh, it's just a shortcut. There's going to be a lot of traffic going the other way. And she's like, please. And she's like, stop the car and let me out now. And he's like, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. And she's like, please let me out. And he doesn't. He just like keeps going, and they get there, and it is the right place. Like, he really did take a shortcut. But whenever they're finished with the ride and she's getting out of the car, he says, thank you, Miss Green, which is her last name. And she's like, how would an Uber driver know my last name? Because your last name isn't supposed to be like in the Uber account information or stuff that drivers can see. And so she's really suspicious about the Uber ride, and we find out that she has had episodes like this in the past, and she's had friends that have encouraged her to go to therapy and stuff, and she hasn't done it. And so she starts to question herself whether what she just experienced was actually real, or whether it was just in her mind, if she was blowing it way out of proportion, or if it really was something really weird going on. And then simultaneously in Theo's narrated chapter, he gets deeper into starting to work with Sydney into researching the history of the neighborhood and the gentrification of the neighborhood, and they find out that it is a historically Black neighborhood. The white people have increasingly been getting rid of the Black people within the community because they're raising prices and such. And this book also raises some really interesting discussions. It has some really interesting dialogue pieces and dynamics between Theo, who is again a white man, and Sydney, who is a Black woman. And as they are researching further into the history of their Brooklyn neighborhood, they come upon some really interesting racially motivated issues going on here. I'm now about 270 pages into When No One Is Watching, and I'm still really loving it so far. We're finally starting to dig a little deeper into the mysteries that are going on here. We're starting to unravel some of the shady shit that's going on. Basically, white people are trying to overtake this Black community, and people just keep disappearing, and they don't tell anyone that they're leaving. And we're to a point now where Sydney's roommate, Drea, has disappeared. And Sydney is kind of used to her going off and doing things by herself sometimes, but she's been gone for 3 days at this point and hasn't texted or called or anything. And so she's starting to get worried that things may not be that simple. And so I'm really excited to finish the book and find out what's going on with everything here. Okay, so last night I finished When No One Is Watching. Easy 5-star book, definitely one of my favorite thrillers released this year. It was really good, highly recommend it for sure. I would compare the book to Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, which is another one of my favorites. If you're a fan of that book or the movie Get Out, I would highly recommend it. Or if you're just a psychological thriller fan in general, this is a really good one. I thought it was really well written. I thought the ending was really well done and surprising enough. And I thought that the racial discussions within the book were done really well, and it added an interesting layer to a thriller that can prompt some very interesting discussions. And I thought it was just really, really well done. I can't believe that it is the author's first thriller. Alyssa Cole has written a lot of romance books, and this is her first thriller. So I'm really hoping that she continues to write more thrillers, because I really, really loved this one. I thought it was so well done. And yeah, once again, highly recommend this one. I'm about 50 pages into One by One by Ruth Ware, and I'm already really enjoying it. It's a genre that's right up my alley. It's like a whodunit murder mystery with a large cast of characters. It's giving me vibes like The Guest List from earlier this year, or like an Agatha Christie book. So that's something that I really enjoy, and I'm already liking where this is going so far. Basically, we've got a startup company who created this app that's really starting to blow up. And we've got our core 9 people who work at this business, and they get away to a ski resort on the French Alps. And so that's where the story is taking place. And then we've got our 10th person, Liz, who we don't really know why she's there yet, but she is a narrator in the story. And we've learned that she used to work at this company, but she hasn't worked there in 3 years. Yet they've invited her to this company retreat for some reason. We don't know yet, like I said, what's going on with that. But our alternate narrator is Aaron, who is the owner of the ski resort that they're staying at. And so we're getting it from alternating points of view between Liz and Aaron. The characters are each have a distinct enough characteristics that you can tell them apart already, which I enjoy that, especially when you have 9 main characters in addition to the 2 narrators. I'm really liking Ruth Ware's writing in this book so far. I've only read 2 of her other books. I know this one is her 6th one, I believe. But I've only read Turn of the Key and In a Dark, Dark Wood from her. But I'm already liking this probably better than the other 2. Granted, like I said, I'm only 50 pages in, but this is something that's, I love a good murder mystery. So this is something that I enjoy a lot. So I'm hoping that it keeps up this momentum throughout the book. Hi, it's like 2 or 3 days later, and I've been a horrible vlogger for the past few days because I finished One by One, and I read the whole thing on the plane, so I wasn't able to really vlog it. But I loved this book. It was 5 stars. It was basically tailor-made for me, to be honest. I love a good whodunit. It's like my favorite genre. And this was set, like I said, on a ski resort, which I love that kind of setting also. And I have seen a lot of negativity towards this book, calling it like a ripoff of Agatha Christie or like very predictable. But honestly, like it definitely reads a lot like an Agatha Christie novel, but I didn't give a fuck because I love Agatha Christie books. And I really enjoyed Ruth Ware's writing in this book. I thought that she made it very entertaining. I thought she did a really good job with developing the characters because we're following 12, even though there's only 2 narrators, we've got 12 main characters in this book that are staying at this resort together. But I think that she did a good job of making sure each one had a role in the book. And I personally didn't find it predictable. I mean, of course, everyone's reading experiences are going to be different, but even me as a person who reads a ton of mysteries and thrillers, like I was wrong about the killer the whole time. And then after the killer is revealed, it just kind of keeps going, and there's even more secrets that come out at the end. And so I really enjoyed how well thought out this book was, and I thought it was really well written. And so yeah, 5 stars. I really loved this one, and there's not really much I can say about this without making it spoiler central, and I want to avoid that for this vlog. So I'm just gonna say, if you love a good whodunit story, if you liked books like The Guest List that came out earlier this year, or especially if you're a fan of Agatha Christie books or books in that vein, you will enjoy this one for sure. And it was also really fun to read about like a snow mountain at the beginning of September. So it's putting me in like a wintry mood just right as it's starting to get a little cooler at the end of summer. So I really enjoyed this one a lot. It's one of my favorite books of the year so far. And that's gonna wrap up this video. It's definitely been a very successful reading week for me. I read 3 thrillers that were all fantastic. Just a quick recap. I started with The Nothing Man by Catherine Ryan Howard. I don't have it to hold it up because I swapped it out to someone already. But that one, again, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I love the true crime element of that book. So if you're a fan of that genre, check that one out. The next one I read was When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. This one I gave 5 out of 5 stars. This one reads as more of a contemporary fiction novel, in my opinion, with some mysteries thrown into it, and then it takes a thriller turn like in the last third of the book. But I still really love this. I thought it had some really important things to say. And the third and final book I read for this vlog was One by One by Ruth Ware, which is a whodunit murder mystery set in the French Alps. We're following a group of 10 people who work for this startup app tech company thing, and they go to a company retreat in the French Alps together, and they're joined by the 2 workers who own the ski resort, and they start getting murdered one by one, as the title implies. And so it's a wintry murder mystery story that I really loved. So yeah, once again, this was a really successful vlog. I enjoyed all 3 of these. I would recommend all 3 of them. The last 2 are definitely some of my favorite books of the year so far. So thanks for watching, and now get off YouTube and read a book.